Tonight on Steelers Talk, there is another quarterback that has been taken off the board in NFL free agency as we continue to wait on a decision from Aaron Rodgers here in 2026. Then also there's a report that the Steelers could be trading up in round one of the NFL draft this year for a star safety. I'll be breaking that down here later in the show. Also, Mike McCarthy from the league owners meetings in Arizona this week answered the question at left guard and who exactly is going to be playing there for the Steelers this year. And then also, could we see Nick Herbig's situation with his contract extension get ugly this offseason? There's one Steelers reporter that thinks it's heading to a very dark place very, very quickly. Now, before we get into the content today, guys, make sure you give me a follow on X for additional Steelers content. At Jack_Sperry, that's where I give my initial reaction to every bit of big Steelers news that happens all throughout the calendar year. I do film study stuff on there. I'm going to be putting out full extensive scouting reports on all the top quarterbacks in this year's draft class for our draft coverage here at Chat Sports. I put my mock drafts up on there. So at Jack_Sperry is where you guys can find me on X. And we're going to do a little bit of a promotion today, guys, where everyone that follows me at Jack_Sperry on X this weekend will get a shout out on the show next week. So again, that's at Jack_Sperry on X. All you have to do is click that follow button and you'll be seeing your name up on the Steelers Talk live show with a special shout out next week. All right, so we'll kick off our news coverage here today with Kirk Cousins heading to Sin City here. The good boys heading over to the team whose motto is, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. I mean, you want to talk about the juxtaposition of, Kirk Cousins and then team branding. I mean, oh my goodness. But, they are planning on bringing in Fernando Mendoza, who's kind of another kind of goody two-shoes type. And I think that it's a really good fit between Kirk Cousins and the Las Vegas Raiders. I think Kirk, he doesn't have a lot of arm strength left. So I think, playing in a dome stadium is good for him. Also, he's a veteran of Clint Kubiak's offense. He can operate that and teach it at the same time to Fernando Mendoza. I just think that makes a lot of sense for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, what's interesting here from a Steelers perspective is that Diana Rossini from The Athletic reported today that Pittsburgh was not among the teams that were interested in Kirk Cousins at all during free agency this year. So they showed zero interest in Kirk Cousins. And honestly, I think the reason why Cousins took so long to make this decision is because he was kind of waiting on that call from Pittsburgh, hoping that Aaron Rodgers might retire so that would open up an opportunity here in Pittsburgh. But obviously, Kirk got tired of waiting, and he ended up signing with the silver and black. And, with this signing, it just feels even more, guys, that the inevitable situation here of Aaron Rodgers coming back to play another season for the Pittsburgh Steelers just becomes more and more obvious with everything that we heard this week from the owners' meetings from Mike McCarthy with how much he's talking with Aaron Rodgers. Now Rodgers is talking with other Steelers coaches in the building and Omar Khan, and he's very involved with the process of everything this offseason. It seems obvious that Rodgers is eventually going to make it official. It's just, they haven't made it official yet for whatever reason. They want to work on Rodgers' timeline, and it seems like, eventually, hopefully before the draft, we get an official answer from QB1 here. But if Aaron Rodgers decides to pull the rug out from Mike McCarthy and the Steelers at this point, I think we'd be in a pretty rough situation here. And I know a lot of people out there want to see what we have in Will Howard. And I've said on this show, I think Howard does have some nice traits, and there is some reason to think that he could potentially be a starting quarterback in this league. It's just I'm not sure what that the odds of him becoming like the quarterback that this team needs for a win now season here in 2026 are all that high. And honestly, I think the chances of him just being an absolute disaster are a lot higher than him being like a top half of the league starter for this team next year. So obviously they'd probably have to go to some contingency plans, maybe bring in some competition in the draft. You could maybe trade for some competition like Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, or maybe just bring in a guy like Mac Jones via trade. But, this is definitely something here, guys, where it sounds like and it feels like, just like last year, that Rodgers will be returning and Will Howard will be kind of working behind him in his second year in the league, working behind Aaron Rodgers and kind of competing with Mason Rudolph to be this team's QB2 once we get into camp. But now we can shift our focus here to the NFL draft here, where Gerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette suggests that the Steelers could think about trading up in round one, not for a receiver, not for a guard, but for a safety. This is what Dulac had to say in his most recent article. They're not going to move up to take a guard, and there are enough wide receivers that they don't need to give up a prime draft pick merely to move up. Now safety, indicating that they might think about trading up for a safety if, of course, the right safety falls to a certain point in the draft and the price is right in terms of a trade-up situation for GM Omar Khan. Now, the two kind of trade-up safeties that the Steelers could consider here, Caleb Downs, who's currently ranked as the number 9 overall prospect in the class out of Ohio State. He could certainly be in consideration, but also Dillon Thieneman from Oregon, 4'3" guy, awesome film, versatility. Maybe Patrick Graham has fallen in love with Thieneman, and that's who they want to be their next, versatile defensive back in this defense of the future. Remember, Jaquan Brisker is only on a 1-year deal, and he does have a history of concussions. So I do think that getting some nice safety depth and maybe a future starter at the safety position is important for the Pittsburgh Steelers to address in the draft this year. Now, the question is, would you actually trade up for one of these safeties? And you know what? If the Steelers traded up, maybe just outside of the top 10 or maybe just inside the top 10 and they didn't have to pay too much to go get them, talking about Caleb Downs here, I wouldn't hate it. I mean, Caleb Downs, in my opinion, is one of the maybe top 5 players in this entire class. He's the type of guy that just anticipates things before they even happen. Minkah Fitzpatrick was very much like that, and we know how important a player like Minkah was to this defense when he was in his prime. And if you get Caleb Downs and you pair him up with already a really good, kind of safety / big nickel type of combination here with Deshaun Elliott playing box safety, and then you have Jalen Ramsey playing the big nickel, like you're talking about one of the best, secondaries in the National Football League, especially when you include the outside cornerbacks here in Joey Porter Jr. and Jamel Dean. And, if you want to play a lot of man coverage, you can certainly run it with Caleb Downs at the other starting safety spot. And you would also have great depth with Jaquan Brisker, who can play big nickel, who can play box safety, who can also play free safety. So if there's an injury, you have a longtime starter that can get the job done. Now, personally, you guys know this if you've been watching the channel, I would be focusing on wide receiver in round 1 because I think that getting the right wide receiver 3, and you have to get the right mold of wide receiver 3, is somebody that can run really good routes, separate versus man to force defenses in the zone, which would allow Aaron Rodgers to use his football IQ to slice up those zones. I think it's so important to get that kind of player. And obviously with Rodgers and his history working with younger receivers, I think there's only a few wide receivers in this class that could have as much success as this team needs from their wide receiver 3 right away with Aaron Rodgers throwing them the football. So for me, I would be looking at wide receiver probably in round 1 if I can, and there's definitely enough good receivers like Dulac pointed out here in his answer where the Steelers, if they want to, they can just stick and pick at number 21 and get probably a really good wide receiver to add to this room this year. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Would you support a trade-up scenario inside the top 15 to land Caleb Downs out of Ohio State? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today. While I'll tell you about our sponsor, give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. If you guys want to pick up a nice piece of Steelers Talk apparel, you can go to our website, chatsports.com/Steelers Talk, to pick up this Steelers Talk t-shirt today. My bosses tell me we are 5 t-shirts away from unveiling a new piece of Steelers merch next week on the live show on Monday. So if you guys want to help us get closer to that milestone and you want a nice t-shirt here to wear lounging around the house, watching our live shows, watching our watch parties on Steelers game days, or just wearing it to Latrobe in training camp, and I could definitely easily identify you if you're wearing my shirt. So go to chatsports.com/Steelers Talk if you guys want to pick it up today. I greatly appreciate your guys' support. All right, so now, Big Mike McCarthy, our new head coach here in Pittsburgh, gave us an answer in his media scrum earlier this week in Phoenix at the NFL owners' meetings in terms of what the plan is at the starting left guard spot heading into the year. Now, he did say that the team plans on drafting interior offensive line help in the NFL draft this year, but right now it is a competition between 2 veterans, Brock Hoffman and Spencer Anderson. Obviously, Hoffman being brought in on a 1-year contract, a very team-friendly contract, and Spencer Anderson, a former 7th-round pick, has been kind of the quote-unquote jumbo tight end here over the last year and has been a pretty decent backup guard for this team during his Steelers tenure. But it does sound to me like drafting a guard probably by the end of day 2, so that's round 3, if you guys didn't know, is pretty much a certainty at this point. Whether it's a 1st-round pick, 2nd-round pick, or 3rd-round pick, I think we're going to see the Steelers draft some sort of guard by the end of day 2 of the NFL draft here in just a few weeks. You guys can take a look here at the top 5 guard prospects according to the consensus big board and where they rank on that board. You got Venga Ioane, who's currently ranked at number 16. You've got Emmanuel Pregnon from Oregon at number 39, Chase Besantis from Texas A&M at 44, Kalen Rutledge at number 64, and then Jalen Farmer from Kentucky at 106. Maybe we could see him being picked number 99. I just think that we're going to see one of these guys probably get taken by the Steelers. They've talked with a lot of these guys, whether it be at the NFL Combine or bringing them in for top 30 visits. The Steelers are showing interest at the guard position. I think that that's probably where they go here, at least with one of their 5 top 100 picks this year. Now, this also means that Mason McCormick is likely sticking at right guard. Now, I guess there's always a possibility that the Steelers could draft a right guard, that they want to stick there and then put McCormick at left guard because that's where he played at college at South Dakota State. He did it very well. But he's made the transition fully to right guard, and he played really well there last year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it appears Mike McCarthy and new offensive line coach here, James Campen, don't want to mess with the chemistry that Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, and Choi Fautanu built during the 2025 season by moving McCormick, the piece in the middle there, over to the left side. So make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already to help out the channel today. By doing so, you tell the YouTube algorithm that you enjoy our content and you're enjoying this video and that other Steelers fans across the globe would like it too. So if you do that, they're going to recommend this show to more Steelers fans across the world. And of course, that gets more eyeballs on the channel, which leads to more subscribers and so on and so forth. So if you're already subscribed, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon with every Steelers Talk video you watch because it really does help out the channel. All right, so now our final topic of the day here, and this one's uncomfortable to talk about here because it is a little bit of a pickle that the Steelers are in this offseason, which is the Nick Herbig situation. And Ray Filipaldo from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette thinks that Pittsburgh has quite the pickle on their hands when it comes to the Nick Herbig contract and extension situation this year. This is what Ray had to say about it. Herbig and his agent are well aware of what young and ascending edge rushers can make on the open market, which will make it difficult for the Steelers to sign him to an extension this summer. Barring a trade of Watt or Highsmith, and Khan has given no indication he is willing to part with either, Herbig has to go elsewhere to become a starter and earn a top contract, 2 things that Herbig has said that he is looking for. He wants to be a full-time starter, and he wants to get paid like one of the top edge rushers in the league, and I don't blame him for that because he's played very, very well with the Pittsburgh Steelers over these last several seasons. Now, something definitely eventually has to give in this edge rusher room, right? Like you can't retain 3-star level edge rushers in your outside linebacker room for a long period of time. It's just not sustainable. There's not enough reps to go around, and somebody's always going to be the odd man out in terms of this position unless somebody changes positions, which I don't see any of these guys willingly doing here at the Pittsburgh Steelers. But at the same time, I don't think Pittsburgh wants to trade any of these guys, at least not right now. They're going into a season where they feel like, Cam Hayward, it might be his final year of his career. Aaron Rodgers could be his final year of his career. They're trying to capitalize on the veteran talent they have on the roster right now, and they're trying to win a Super Bowl this year, and having that 3-headed monster at the edge rusher position is definitely something that can help them in that cause. But, it would not surprise me if the Nick Herbig makes this situation quite ugly, especially if it drags on close to or even into training camp. I think this is a situation where Herbig might say, I'm not playing this year unless you give me a contract extension, and I'm not practicing at training camp until I get my new contract or you trade me away. It's going to be an interesting situation for sure, man. Now, here's what I think happens, okay? And I think this is the best way to handle this situation where really everybody can win. Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt, and then the Steelers, everybody can win. And the way that you can do that is that the Pittsburgh Steelers give Nick Herbig that contract extension this year, but then they plan on trading Alex Highsmith during the 2027 offseason. So one more season of Alex Highsmith, and then Nick Herbig goes from being that number 3 rotational guy to the number 2 starting outside linebacker on the other side of TJ Watt once we get to the 2027 season. And you guys got to remember here, next offseason, Alex Highsmith will be entering his age 30 season, and it's going to be a contract year. So if he has another really good season this year, he's probably going to want to get paid a lot of money. And, the fact that he is heading into his age 30 season, that might be the perfect time to unload Alex Highsmith and his contract to another team. You can get a good draft pick for him, especially if he comes off a really good season here in 2026, even at age 30, and then Highsmith can go somewhere else, make his money, he wins. But then the Steelers also have Nick Herbig on the roster for the long-term future. And now, if they're going to do this, Pittsburgh is going to have to backload Nick Herbig's new contract, where essentially the cap hit for Herbig this year is not going to be all that high because obviously Watt and Highsmith are going to have two pretty big cap hits this year in the edge rusher room. I don't think the Steelers want to have three large edge rusher cap hits on their roster this year. But then when Herbig is slated to become that full-time starter in 2027, that's when the cap hit can get raised for Herbig, and it makes a lot more sense because he's getting the snaps. Therefore, he's taking more of the cap space for the Steelers heading into the 2027 season. Now, you guys can see here that, there's a lot of really highly paid edge rushers in terms of per year salary and how much they're making per season, right? And at the outskirts of the top 10, you're getting close to $30 million. Now, Nick Herbig is somebody that's obviously never been a full-time starter. He doesn't have elite traits in terms of length and size and all these different things. He wins with technique. He wins with pure speed, and he's an awesome player. But right now, Spotrac projects his contract value at 4 years, $14 million per season. I think if Herbig and his representation were willing to take that, the extension would already be done. I think the Steelers would have already done that. But I don't think that's the case, and I think they're seeking a really, really big contract, probably somewhere around the range of $25 to $30 million per season for Herbig, and it's going to, and whatever contract he ends up accepting from whether it's the Steelers or somebody else, it's probably going to be much more than $14 million per season, just so you guys are aware. But in this situation, the Steelers would be giving him that $25 to $30 million per season, whatever he's really asking for, but they're going to be kind of offloading some of the money on that contract to future years, so it makes more sense for his cap hit to really kick in when he's going to be a full-time starter for this defense down the road. And I think the reason why this is such a good plan for the Pittsburgh Steelers guys is you get to keep all three of these players on your team this year in a win-now season with a lot of urgency to try and get Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Aaron Rodgers a Super Bowl here in Pittsburgh. Then Herbig gets his money, so he's happy there. Not to mention, I think that Patrick Graham is going to do a good job finding creative ways to get him on the field more than Terrell Austin did in this defense last year. So I think Herbig will be happy with his role. Not to mention, he's on track to become a full-time starter starting in the 2027 season. And then also, you get something for Alex Highsmith. It's not like you're just letting Alex Highsmith walk. Next offseason, you're going to get a pretty decent draft pickup for him, I think, like maybe a third-round pick and a really good 2027 draft class. And that's not even counting the picks that you might be getting in a potential Mike Tomlin trade. So the 2027 draft, the Steelers might be loaded with draft picks in the top 100, just like they are this year. And Alex Highsmith and trading him could potentially contribute to that. But, plain simply, guys, I'm right there with all Steelers fans out there where, if they trade Nick Herbig this offseason, I'm going to be pissed about it. He's like, 24 years old. He's been fantastic for this football team since he's gotten here, essentially. And, he's a rising star, especially as a number 2 type of edge rusher. And, if the Steelers let that go to keep, a 30-plus-year-old TJ Watt and then a soon-to-be 30-year-old Alex Highsmith as your number 1 and number 2 edge rushers, it just feels like you're getting rid of your future at the position to keep the present, and I don't think that is a good strategy. Now, with that said, okay, if, it really gets to a point where Herbig is like, nope, I don't want to be a third rotational guy. I got to be a number 1 or number 2 starter this year. If you can't give me that role, trade me away, and the Steelers oblige that request. Like, I could see them maybe hunting some 2027 NFL draft capital in a trade for Nick Herbig. Now, maybe they can get a pick in 2026 and a pick in 2027 in a potential package for him. But I know that 2027 draft will be important for Pittsburgh because I think they want to draft their future franchise quarterback in that draft class. So attaining picks, especially in the top 100 of next year's NFL draft, if they can get a pick within the first 3 rounds in next year's draft, I think that's something that maybe they would consider trading in exchange for Nick Herbig. But who gets ousted in this room this year, guys? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. comment section. Type TJ if you think TJ Watt gets ousted in the years to come. If you think Alex Highsmith is the one that is the odd man out here, type AH. Or if you think Nick Herbig is the one that gets sent elsewhere, type NH down there in the comment section. For me, I think the best plan is Alex Highsmith in 2027. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. And that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors. Thank you guys for joining me here today. We're going to have more great Steelers content coming your way over the course of the weekend here. So if you don't want to miss any of that, guys, click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.